All right. So, welcome everyone. This is understanding impact versus effort and how to maximize your team's throughput. Jonathan Dietering is our presenter today, and he has a great presentation on that he's going to walk us through. Just to let a couple things know up front here, we will make sure we will pause for questions near the end of the talk. So if you do have any thoughts or questions you'd like to add, feel free to add them in chat. I will help keep track of those. And I know that if there's something that Jonathan sees, he may pause to address as well. In the meantime, this will also be recorded for later view. If there's any other major questions, please feel free to bring up in chat as well. We have myself and Mernaz here, both to help and assist you, make sure you can access everything okay. With that, I'm going to hand things off to Jonathan.
Thanks a lot. So this is understanding impact versus effort and how to maximize your team's throughput. So what we're going to talk about today are some of the factors that help and hinder efficiency on our projects, and talk about a few of the ways that we can increase our productivity. So about me, Jonathan Dietering, he, him, his. I am a member of the client engagement team in DoIT's web platform services group. I'm a software engineer, and I have degrees in marketing and web software development. So I'm a little bit of a mixed role sometimes. I'm a software developer by choice and a project manager sort of by necessity. So I earned a Agile Project Management certificate in 2017, certificate of leadership competency this spring, and right now I'm also pursuing a Six Sigma certificate in my spare time. So I've worked with various clients on campus and occasionally nonprofits, businesses, and other organizations on the side. Before coming to the university, I worked in advertising for clients like Culver's, Fiskars, Summit Credit Union, Gilmer Water Products, and a whole lot of other clients. So I like to start off my presentations with a joke, cheesy joke. So what is the difference between a piano and a tuna? You can tune a piano, but you can't piano a tuna. All right, so back to the agenda. So for today, what we're going to be talking about is throughput and its constraints, planning for delays, reducing work in progress, using the impact versus effort matrix, which I call IVY, tactics for bringing the matrix into pre-existing workflows, and recognizing when celebration is due. So first, let's talk about throughput. I think a lot of us have a concept of throughput understood, but what does throughput mean? What throughput means is it's the amount of material or items passing through a system or a process. For us, those are tasks being done. In IT, a lot of times we have a task board with swim lanes. The throughput, in a lot of cases, is the work that's in our task board, in our backlog, that's moving through and being completed. That's the context that we're talking about in this presentation. So, oops, let's go back, sorry. All right, so here's a question. Your project is behind schedule and you have a deadline coming up that your team is not on track to make. Which option do you choose? A, you bring on new team members, you lower the expectations of the client by removing features or scaling back on scope, or C, you make your team work nights and weekends until it's done. So think about that quick. What would you do? So let's talk about each of those options. Bring on new team members. First off, bringing on new team members requires onboarding, and onboarding new team members is time consuming. Is your team going to have time to stop to get a new team member up to speed? Probably not. And even if you can bring them up to speed, the new team members are going to be expected to step into your workflow and be productive immediately, quick enough to make the deadline. And is that realistic? For some very experienced new team members, yeah, maybe, but it depends. It really depends on the team members you're bringing in. It's fairly unrealistic to assume that increasing the size of your team is going to be a quick process. What about if you lower the expectations of a client, scale back on scope, remove features? This might make your client unhappy. When you overpromise and underdeliver, that definitely doesn't make a client happy. And at the very least, you're going to have to schedule a meeting to reset expectations. You're going to have to talk with the client. You're going to have to renegotiate. Budgets and agreements might be broken. And if nothing else, really, it's going to reflect poorly on your team if you're not accomplishing what you said you were going to accomplish. Now, here's the worst one, I think. I think some of us can relate to doing this to accomplish to meet their deadlines. Luckily, this is a thing of the past for me, I feel like, but make your team work nights and weekends until it's done. If you do this, you might hit your deadline, and you probably will hit your deadline if you work long enough hours. But at what cost are you meeting your deadline? There's a number of things that can happen when you work long hours. It can cause a decline in productivity. There's really only so much work that you can get done in a short amount of time. And it's going to cause a decline in your health. Not to mention that nobody, yourself or your team included, likes to work 60-hour weeks. That's tough. 12, 14-hour days, 16-hour days, when you put those in at the end of a project, which is sometimes necessary to hit a deadline, that doesn't make you feel good. And then your team's going to look back at earlier delays and they're going to point fingers, probably going to point fingers at you as the project manager. You're going to say, well, the reason that we didn't get this done is because this other thing wasn't ready. There was a delay. People were discussing the work while we were sitting on our hands, and we didn't get it done because you didn't leave enough time for us to implement the decisions that you spent so much time talking about. Definitely relate to that in some situations, some projects for sure. So the options that we just discussed, right? They're not really options. Really what they are throughput constraints. Each of these options really just increase the amount of work that we needed to do prior to completing the original goal. Bringing on new team members required training time. Removing features or scaling back on scope required meeting with the client to reset expectations. And working long hours risked shrinking the team through sickness or somebody quitting, right? If you work people too long, they're going to leave the team. And then who's going to make up that workload? That just sticks you further in the hole. So because these options are actually throughput constraints, what's important to understand is that controlling our work in progress is actually what's critical to maximizing throughput. Meaning that doing more work doesn't mean that more of our priorities are being completed. And we'll get more into work in progress here as we progress through this slide deck. Limits exist everywhere. Resources are always limited. Promises, they must be kept. Funding can dry up. Training isn't instantaneous. Cancellations, they're going to cause delays. Direction and strategy, it's not always clear. Can't always act unless you know what to act on, right? So there's always limits. So what we do is we set priorities. And throughput is a priority. We should make throughput a priority from the start. To do that, what we do is plan for failure by understanding our weaknesses. We've removed blockers caused by delayed meetings, lack of authority, and other bottlenecks. We keep our communication channels simple, and we keep our team close, and we outsource early if we need to outsource labor. We don't bring on new team members right at the end. As we discussed before, that's just going to distract the core team who's already been trying to accomplish the work from accomplishing their goal. It's going to transition them into a position where they're training and onboarding the new team members. And that can create a huge delay. And another thing that we do is we focus on easy wins. We'll talk about this more later, but we focus on easy wins and maintaining control over our work in progress. This is a concept that we'll talk about throughout this slide deck. Easy wins, remember that term. We'll come back to it, and it's one of the big takeaways from this. So hurry up and wait. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this term, but hurry up and wait, right? The concept that we're going to spend a whole lot of time waiting for decisions to come down to us when we could be working, right? Delays upstream equal problems downstream, right? Decisions that take too much time are going to happen, right? Some decisions are important, some aren't, but decisions taking too much time happen. That's a fact. But why? You know, an authority might be unavailable or considers the decision low priority. The availability of enough information hinges on something that's delayed. I mean, you can't make a decision on a thing until you have more information about it, but getting more information is taking too much time and you need to finish the work, right? Communication channels or decision-making process is overly complex, or meetings are delayed or rescheduled. All of those things can create delays upstream that delay implementation downstream, right? So when a decision is finally made, it could be like opening a dam. The people downstream have to scramble. The flood of work comes down to them. The meeting has finally been held. The decisions are made. Now it's time for you to do the work. But did it come in time? Did the decision take multiple weeks in a 1 to 2 month project? And now 6 weeks of planning went into 1 to 2 weeks of implementation. Can anybody relate to those situations? Probably that happens. And what happens is it leaves minimal time for implementation. As a result, the work in progress increases for the team. Suddenly, there's a jump in the amount of work that they have to tackle immediately. And they don't have the choice now to space out and prioritize always over a longer period of time. They're stuck having to do it in a short amount of time and try to hit a deadline. So let's talk about work in progress. What is work in progress? So in this example, it says an unfinished project that is still being added to or developed. The way I think of work in progress is our task board, right? We have swim lanes on a task board. We have a backlog. We have things that are in progress, they're blocked, or they're in a completed swim lane. In general, all of these except for the completed swim lane are work in progress. Even things that aren't on the task board can sometimes be work in progress. Your communications can sometimes be a work in progress. Essentially, these are work in progress is all of the discussions related to your task. It's the actual implementation of the task. And work in progress, in the simplest terms, just means whatever is on your task board or whatever the tasks on your task board hinge on before they can move over into that completed column. So controlling work in progress is critical to maximizing throughput. And what controlling work in progress doesn't mean is spending more time discussing what not to do, not completing priorities, deciding to scale down on scope. That's not controlling your work in progress. That's just scaling down on scope, really. It also doesn't mean is accepting wastes and delays as inevitable. We can plan around these things and deal with them. What controlling work in progress does mean is identifying what to do first and getting it done as soon as possible. Prioritizing tasks based on their impact and your team's unique limitations. Sometimes you're short on staff. Sometimes you need to outsource an individual who's available to help you on a particular technology that you don't have resources for. There's a lot of limitations, and each team is unique. What controlling work in progress also means is optimizing your workflow to reduce delays and avoid lost or wasted resources. It goes back to the hurry up and wait, the time spent waiting. Those are lost resources. If you are spending time just doodling at your desk waiting, that's not progress towards your end goal. That's just wasted time. That's lost resources. So let's talk about impact versus effort. I'm going to refer to this as Ivy. This is the impact versus effort matrix. There's 4 quadrants. And impact versus effort is a way of considering priorities based on your unique limitations. Ivy prioritizes easy wins to keep your work in progress under control and your clients happy. Ivy's not a magic pill, right? There's no magic pills in project management. It's just coffee, right? But Ivy's not a magic pill. It's just a simple way of thinking about the tasks that should be completed first and which should come later. It's a prioritization. Ivy can be controversial, definitely be controversial. If you prioritize a small task over a big task, it can resemble a delay. And a stakeholder might pressure you to prioritize it out of order. Sometimes there's really important big picture things that need to be done, but it's not right just to work on the big thing first, just because it's the big thing. It just doesn't work that way. So let's talk about the first quadrant, high impact, low effort tasks. These are the easy wins. High impact, low effort tasks take minimum effort to deliver something of value to the client. Completing easy wins as soon as possible will reduce your team's work in progress, and it'll make your client happy from the quick turnaround. So here's an example of an easy win. This was something that came into me in an email while I was working on this slide deck. So the client said, we're having issues with the class start date. The register by dates that come after the start date are being ignored and courses are getting pulled off the website too early, right? It's an important request. They're having problems with something that's impacting people registering for a course, that costs money. That's important. That's a high value, high impact request. And for me, here's the fix, right? All I need to do is update this conditional and add just a little bit more to it, right? That's easy. It's quick. And if the fix is important and quick, don't delay it. Why delay it? By doing it now, doing it as soon as possible, I am moving something through my task board. It's going into the in progress and right out into the completed column, right? It's keeping my work in progress under control. It's not adding to my backlog. It's just shooting right through. And it makes the client happy. So the response I got is, thank you so much. You made a lot of individuals happy today, because we made a quick turnaround on the request. These are the kind of responses that you want from your client. You want to hear that they're happy. You don't want to have to sit down and explain why you have to delay something or scale back on their expectations. You want to make them happy. You want to deliver value often. So complete high impact tasks as soon as possible. Sometimes delays are necessary, right? Don't want to, but an easy win isn't always something that you can deliver immediately. Sometimes you have to postpone an easy win. Maybe you have a deadline for other work. You've already promised something, or you've been instructed to focus on something else. With a window of time to complete the work might impact its success. You might think, oh, I got 30 minutes before my next meeting. I can get this wrapped up, but can you really? Is 30 minutes enough time to do it correctly? It's up to you, but you need to make sure that the window of time to work on it actually matches the work that's needed for completing the task. Or you're deep in a flow state on a high impact, high effort task. We'll get back to high impact, high effort tasks in a little bit, but if you're in a flow state, you're working hard on a high impact, high effort task. As we'll discuss later, you aren't going to want to stop working on that high impact, high effort task to transition to a low impact or a low effort task. You're going to want to stay focused on that if you can. Before we get to those, we're going to talk quick about low impact, low effort tasks. These are some of my favorites. So low impact, low effort tasks, they're just like easy wins, right? Because they're fairly easy to do, and fast turnaround is going to make your client happy. The only thing is that they're not very important. So if you have work that you can do fast, but it's not super important, right? Don't prioritize it over work that's more important. Instead, you work on this during delays, because as we discussed before, delays are essentially inevitable. You're always going to have a delay. You're always going to have a canceled meeting. You're always going to have something that comes up that's going to stop work on one thing. And then you have to choose what to work on in your extra time to avoid wasting that time. So that's where low impact, low effort tasks come in. So low income, low effort tasks are key to optimizing our throughput because they reduce our wasted time and reduce work in progress. We get something done with time that would be otherwise wasted. These are the type of tasks that might start on a Friday afternoon, or when a meeting's canceled, or when you just have an extra hour or two, right? These are good ones for the end of the week. Sometimes 3 o'clock on a Friday rolls around and I don't know, I'm kind of looking for something to do. That's when I work on my low impact, low effort tasks. Because if I don't finish them, so what?
Jonathan, this is sounding really great. I just want to let you all know that there's about 6 minutes left. So just want to remind folks in the chat, if you do have any questions, please feel free to jot those down and let us know if you'd like to ask them. Otherwise, just want to give you a quick time check.
Cool, thank you. So here's an example of a low impact, low effort task. So if your team is asked to update a spreadsheet with quarterly data, it might take 30 minutes and it needs to be done within a couple of weeks, but not right away, right? That's, you can do it quickly. You don't need a lot of resources to do this. You know how to do it. It's something you do a lot of times. So how we might approach this task is to do it on a Friday when we don't have anything else to do. Do it during a canceled meeting. Do it during an unexpected delay. Do it when other work is wrapped up, but don't prioritize this type of work over the easy wins. Instead, work on them during a delay. And never block high impact tasks with low impact tasks, unless it helps to avoid creating a future delay. And then usually you'll want to stop working on a low impact task if a higher priority develops, but that's up to you. So high impact, high effort tasks, they are hard fought, important wins. They take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and they take careful planning and careful scheduling to be successful with them. These are the types of tasks, the high effort tasks, that are commonly delayed by factors that are out of your control. So we need to plan for these delays and prepare work to tackle while we wait, meaning having low impact, low effort tasks queued up to work on when we're delayed. So an example of a high impact, high effort task is that your team is tasked with testing and customizing a software platform, right? It's kind of a big ask. We need access. We need access to the platform, and we're going to need time to learn how to use it before we can start customizing. So how we would approach this task: we would avoid wasted time by planning for delays and focusing on other work when those delays occur. We proactively schedule time to focus on learning the platform and making the customizations. We set realistic expectations with the client about our turnaround time. And most importantly, we start the work as soon as possible. We know there's going to be delays, so we need to start as soon as possible and give ourselves as much lead time as possible to complete it by the deadline. And then finally, low impact, high effort tasks. These are time consuming and they contribute very little to the project. Avoid these like the plague. Avoid making these tasks a priority over other tasks and decline them if you can, especially if you're short on resources. Sometimes, usually, I feel like these tasks are the result of pressure from stakeholders or a leader who's not really actively involved in completing the work, but that have sway over the priorities of the project. So here's an example of a low impact, high effort task. Your team's tasked with updating your website's code to support a deprecated version of Internet Explorer. I've seen this happen before, not in a long time, luckily, but years ago, supporting IE6, because a powerful stakeholder hasn't updated their software and they're very concerned about the way that something looks. And we know, our team knows, looking at our analytics, that our visitors are rarely impacted by this issue because they aren't using IE6. But the stakeholder insists that it's prioritized. So what do? We attempt to decline the work. We attempt to gain consensus on our approach. And if we have to do the work, we set it as a low priority. But we try to offer compelling data-driven arguments as to why we should delay or decline it. And we try our best to avoid this work. So impact versus effort isn't a solution. It's a way of evaluating priorities and their limits. So there's a couple ways to include Ivy into your workflow. You can create a card sorting activity to go through your backlog of work, and then just put your cards into those quadrants. Just use your best judgment and then prioritize your tasks based on that activity. Or you can make it a mental process. So you can use Ivy to determine, when you get an email, should I drop everything right now and work on this? Is this high impact, high value enough? Or should I schedule time to work on it later? Or if your meeting's canceled, use it to determine what you should work on with your extra time. So there's a couple rules of the road, and then I'll let you all go. Communicate the process to your stakeholders and team members. Tackling small tasks with big tasks, this is controversial, and stakeholders won't understand your priorities unless you explain to them. And also, don't let the activities to determine your Ivy, don't let them increase your work in progress. don't make your card sorting activities hard on your team. And then finally, recognize when celebration is due. If you turn around something in a legendary time, and it was something that's very high impact, make that known. When you do something great, share that with your team and your colleagues. And then finally, maximize the work not done. Create time to focus on your work, maintain flexibility in your schedule so that you can communicate with your colleagues, stay laser focused on your most valuable priorities, don't create delays, and cut waste and change your processes when they're not an efficient way to deliver value. So in summary, deliver value often by prioritizing easy wins, schedule time to accomplish your tasks that require it, and prepare to pivot to low impact or low effort tasks when you run into delays. Reduce waste in work in progress, use your time wisely, set realistic expectations for your clients, and celebrate your wins. That's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. This is fantastic.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This was great. If anyone has more questions for Jonathan, you're welcome to stick around a little bit. Just to let everyone know, there are some 2:30 sessions just getting started. So we have Stuck in Limbo with struggles and successes with MS Graph API, and some Flash Talk sessions as well. So feel free to go check those out. And in case you haven't got enough Jonathan today, he's also going to be talking at 3:45 on Google Analytics 4. So definitely take a look at that. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.